will have a monetary reset, and I believe that I don't know when it will happen, but you can see a trend to the de-dollarization right now with Russia and China and India, that they're looking to have a kind of a new currency based on commodities and maybe on gold.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Crypto. Today's video is going to be much more interesting because we have the head of a Canadian political party, Maxime Bernier, with us today. He's going to shed some light on why he thinks the world economy is going to reset in the future and how we should be prepared. Make sure to watch till the end to not miss out on any of the important parts. Let's jump right in.
But, during the last 2 years, I said, that these stimulus coming from your government in US and our government in Canada, I said it is not a stimulus, it is a sedative for the economy. And we have that sedative right now with the huge inflation in Canada and in the US. And the reason, you just said it, the reason for that inflation, it's always because of a bad monetary policy. When, the Bank of Canada was the ATM machine for the federal government here in Canada. The federal government in Canada, the last 2 years, spent money that we don't have and created a huge and irresponsible deficit of $450 billion. And that was financed by printing money by the Bank of Canada. And when you do that, when you're creating money out of thin air, you have inflation. And now we have that inflation, like you said, in Canada, 8.1%. And inflation is a tax. Actually, I look at the data coming from Statistic Canada a month ago, and the average income increase in Canada for this year will be around 5%. So every Canadian will be poorer by 3%. So we have a new 3% tax. So inflation is a tax, and the federal government here in Canada, Trudeau said to Canadians, when they created these huge programs for COVID-19 by shutting down the economy and telling people, stay at home, it will be okay, I will give you more money. But that was, there's nothing like a free lunch, and now we are paying for that.
When the Fed started printing money and giving out stimulus checks, rising inflation was inevitable, according to Maxime. He says it was just a temporary measure to provide short-term relief to the economy, and now we're paying the price for it since inflation is at 40-year highs.
You are in a recession, and we will be in a recession also in Canada. And I believe that we'll have a stagflation. The Bank of Canada will raise interest rate. Actually, the rate for coming from the Bank of Canada, it's about 2.5% here in Canada. And I believe that in September, they will raise rate also. But they won't be able to fight inflation. And usually look at the last time that we had a huge inflation like that in the 1980s. We had in Canada about maybe an inflation rate of 12%. And the Bank of Canada raised the rate at 19% to stop inflation. So I believe that the Bank of Canada and the Fed won't be able to stop inflation. They will create a bigger recession and will be in a stagflation.
Bernier believes the U.S. is already in a recession, and very soon Canada will be in one too. To counter it, the Canadian bank will have to increase rates further, causing an even deeper recession. The only thing holding the U.S. economy for now is the jobs number, but some experts argue that's a lagging indicator. Worst case scenario, and it's likely to occur, we could see stagflation.
Like after the Second World War, we had inflation there to pay for the debt of the war. So that's the only way to liquidate the debt. And I believe that we'll have inflation, maybe not around 8% all the time, but it will be more than 2% for a couple of years. And because we have huge debt, government debt, private sector debt, individual debt, it's a bubble of all debt. So all that must stop.
All the U.S. debt, which is in the trillions, has to be paid back one way or another. This is why Maxime thinks the inflation will stay above 2% for many years to come, and it's very unlikely that we'll drop below that.
We'll have a monetary reset, and I believe that, I don't know when it will happen, but you can see a trend to the de-dollarization right now with Russia and China and India, that they're looking to have a kind of a new currency based on commodities and maybe on gold. So that will happen. I don't know when, but a fiat money system cannot live too long. And after many decades, I believe that with all these debt and all these money printing all across in America and Canada and Europe, that will have to end.
Sooner or later, fiat currencies are going to collapse. According to Bernier, we'll see a great reset at some point, in which we'll go back to currencies backed by some form of a store of value, like gold or other commodities.
It can play a role also. It can be a competition to fiat money. I don't know which role. I believe that, we must encourage more free markets and encourage Bitcoin also, the development of that currency. Personally, I don't have any in my portfolio, but, I'm more a kind of a traditional guy, believing more in a kind of gold standard like we have in the 19th century. And, it was a prosperous time.
Maxime reveals that he doesn't own any Bitcoin personally because he's more inclined towards gold, but he does say that it's pretty useful and has a lot of use cases.
In Canada, the Department of Finance and the Bank of Canada are working on a plan to develop Central Bank Digital Currency. Actually, at our last federal budget, the federal government spent $17 million to be sure that they will be ready in 3 years for that Central Bank Digital Currency. So the position of our party and my position, we are against that. We believe that it would be another way to control what we are doing, to control all our spending and our bank accounts. And it's another way. It's like being a totalitarian country. We don't want that, and we don't need it also. That's important because you have debit cards, you have credit cards, and you can have transaction online and very efficiently with that system. We don't need to have a system that the government will use to control you. So I believe that in the next couple of months, the biggest challenge for our society in US and in Canada will be privacy. And that will be an important fight. And I'm fighting for people to have their privacy respected by totalitarian governments.
While the Canadian government is working to develop a central bank digital currency, Bernier and his party are trying to fight it because it will take away the freedom from people since every transaction is visible on the blockchain. The whole concept of CBDCs sounds counterintuitive to the whole crypto being decentralized narrative. What are your views on CBDCs? Do you think they should exist? If yes, why? Let us know in the comments. Like this video and subscribe to our channel because we upload informational content like this on a daily basis.